Strap yourself in,
because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock has started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. By sharing our collective expertise, we will show you how to harness, control, and use your own skill set to achieve ultimate success and live the life you want. And now, please welcome your host.
So hello everybody, I'm here in Colorado Springs with Dennis and Nate, and I'll have them introduce themselves. And we're going to kind of delve into the small business world and whatever technology that they will share their knowledge about. So Dennis, maybe start with you. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dennis Cater. I'm the the Rocky Mountain AFCEA Chapter Small Business Vice President. We just concluded the Rocky Mountain Cyber Symposium about an hour or two ago. So pardon some of the noise in the background. They're still cleaning up and recovering from the event. It was a great event. I believe we had about 3,300 registrants, over 150 vendors. It was a very well-attended conference, and it was a good conference. We haven't had this now. Last year was, because of COVID, we had a virtual conference, so this is the first time we've had it back in Colorado Springs since 2020. So it was really exciting to have everybody back and in person. It was a great event. As my side job and during my day job, I'm also the small business. I'm the business development director for Quantum Research International, small government contractor here in Colorado Springs.
Do you want to cut and do that over again?
No. You think this was his first time ever doing this? Normally he's the
talkative one.
No, have you ever seen the Talladega Nights?
Yeah.
When he first gets in, wins his first race, this is Dennis in front of a camera. I don't know what to do with my hands. So okay,
playing with the thing down here.
No, we don't want to cut. We just keep going. That's the way this thing works. Okay. People love our stupidity.
You have to watch me dance on our last
podcast.
I'm totally watching that.
It is
Download that for the plane ride home.
Yeah, I don't know if it's politically correct, but he's the perfect version of.
You're a good man.
So anyway, I'm justnate. So Nate Moser, but the online personality is justnate. So I also work with Dennis on our day job, the one that pays us. I'm a professional tech scout for the U.S. Space Force and our company. We also run a software factory there, so multiple different things, including cybersecurity, baked into our software development. And I, as well, help Dennis on the Smalls, our nonprofit organization. So
yeah, we didn't talk about that. So we started an organization about 5 years ago now, almost 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years.
October 2017.
Yeah, felt that there was a need to kind of get the government contracting ecosystem together. Everybody was doing events, all the different organizations in town. There wasn't really a way to get out information on what's happening across the community, across the government contracting ecosystem. So we started an organization, just had a couple of small business development people get together, and then it kept on kind of growing. And today we're over 650 members. We have networking events, or we used to have more meetings, but now they're kind of networking events because everybody seems to want to do that. In Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo. We're also teamed with New Space New Mexico down in Albuquerque. And we're talking about doing some more things in Colorado, several cities like Grand Junction and Durango, as well as doing some activities out in Salt Lake City. We also just supported the Colorado Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, which is a small business administration office to help people that want to start developing a company. And first you go there, they get you all set up, get your your into SAMs and get you registered as a company. And then we believe you kind of come to us where we help you plug into the network. And so we work a bit with them across the state and states. We've supported the Native American PTACs up in Montana and the Northern Rocky Mountain region, and as well as other organizations. So what we call the government contracting ecosystem is really primes, small government contractors, professional organizations, service providers. So if you need IT support or lawyers or health benefits or something like that, you can come to us. We'll plug you into that, or banks. And then manufacturing. So if you're a small government contractor, you don't really have a lot of resources, but if you want to build a product, then you need manufacturing support. So that's kind of the last leg of our ecosystem, if you will.
And do you specialize in helping small companies in a certain kind of sector?
It's mostly DoD.
Okay.
But we just say government contracting because it doesn't have to be DoD. We don't do too much on the commercial side. We do partner with the Small Business SBDC, Small Business Development Center. They are located across Colorado. We have worked with them, co-hosted events, and support their activities as well.
We do have all types of people coming
yeah.
to our events, though. We got construction workers, we've got healthcare workers,
Right.
because it's networking events. So,
Well, it's all part of the ecosystem.
it's all part of the ecosystem, right? If I win a large contract, for example, for the Air Force, building weapon systems on the ground, for example, more than likely it's going to entail part of civil construction. So I need construction workers. I need all of that as part of it, even if I'm a big company, small company.
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers, particularly in Colorado, I can't remember the number, it's billions, right, in construction projects alone.
Yeah.
And we're part of the Omaha district, which is really all the Rocky Mountain states and out into the
Nebraska, Kansas,
prairie, and the Midwest.
Right, wow.
So, so there's a lot of construction. We have the U.S. Forest Service. Most people don't realize Colorado is actually the second largest concentration of government agencies outside of Washington, D.C.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that.
So they're all here in Colorado. It's kind of the backup, I think, to Washington, D.C. So if you're going to do anything with a government agency, you can do it here too. So I mean, NGA's here, Department of Interior, Department of Energy, the National Renewable Energy Labs up in Golden, where they do a lot of new types of energy. The Bureau of Land Reclamation was going to move to Grand Junction. I'm not sure. I think they did.
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure where that is, but they were going to move out here too. So again, Treasury, whatever it is you want to do out here.
Right, and the rise of the U.S. Space Force, obviously.
Yes.
It's been huge.
That must take some of your attention.
Yeah, so as most people know, the Space Force is primarily based here in Colorado. I mean, they are in other locations, California and Florida and other places, but there's a big hub here as well. So yes, so Space Force has been a big contributing factor. We also partner with the Space Force Association. They're here in Colorado, or based out of Colorado Springs. So we do talk to them and help them promote their events. Again, one of the things we're trying to do is, as everybody's doing these activities and doing these things, is to share the information. Because what we found is, the right hand's not always talking to the left hand, or people aren't aware of what's happening with, say they're like organizations like ISSA and AFCEA. Maybe they're both hosting cyber-related events, but they're not really communicating what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we're providing that hub where people can come to our website. We put out a weekly newsletter that lists all the activities of interest, we call them, across the Front Range, and then we also have the calendar. But I also put on their national events. So, we just had AFCEA West out in California. That was on there. And then since there's been so many virtual events, people can attend from anywhere anyways. But we try to promote all that.
Yeah, and so Dennis had mentioned we do events up in Aurora, Denver area, Springs, and then Pueblo as well right now. The reason why we do that is because it's very stovepiped in what each community kind of does. So Denver, Boulder, Aurora area, that's really aerospace centric. There obviously now I don't mean to generalize, but that's really what the business force is up there. Springs is more DoD centric, and then Pueblo is really the manufacturing side of things. So amongst all three of those communities, we could be the powerhouse out of everybody. We could do everything here in Colorado for the most part. The only thing we can't do is coastal launches. There is talk of vertical takeoff.
Yes, at the spaceport.
At the spaceport. So
but it's about 10 miles from the airport. So there's some things they got to work out. But yes, That's the one thing. And the motto of the spaceport here in Colorado is the first mile is free. So because we're a mile out.
Right, yeah,
So.
that's funny. And any lessons learned since you've established this Smalls organization, kind of being in the trenches on this kind of wide scale industry
And
sector support?
engagement and all that, yeah.
I've got one.
Well, communication's a huge one. I know what you're going to say. Communication's huge, and really getting plugged into all the different organizations, right? Because it's kind of a two-way street. We're always asking for input, don't always get it, so we're always looking for input too. But just really engaging with all the other organizations. But I know what Nate's going to say, so go ahead and say it.
Never turn down a conversation.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good lesson.
That's the name of our new book that we're writing.
We are. We're
writing
writing
yeah.
a book,
Yeah.
and it's going to be titled "Never Turn Down a Conversation." We've opened more doors just by having conversations, and
Like this one.
And the door might not be for us. The door might be you came to us and said, "Hey, I've just won this $100 million contract. I really need a cybersecurity company that can help us do X, Y, Z." Okay, so we've got people that we know and we trust. We can then put them in touch with you. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether we get business out of it or it's a feel-good factor, right? We helped you guys out, and we made some good contacts.
One of the other things we did when we first stood this up, and I'm still engaging with, is I looked at other models. So are there other organizations doing similar things? Down in Huntsville, Alabama is HAZBAT. I can't remember the exact Huntsville, Alabama
Right, sure.
business.
Yeah.
There's the IRA and the Hanscom groups out in the Northeast. NDIA is huge in a lot of areas. NDIA is more geared towards the larger companies, while our focus, the primary customer, is to smaller companies. But we want to, engage all of them. So again, the primes, the smalls. And then in the Pacific Northwest, you got the Pacific Northwest Defense Contractors, PNDC. They're actually a really good organization that we've kind of modeled a lot after. California, again, you have NDIA and AFCEA. So there are models out there that we looked at. And PACA, down in New Mexico, and now New Space New Mexico, that are all trying to do things. So, talking to those organizations and collaborating with them too, trying to figure out events.
I'm sorry.
It's good.
It's okay. I'm trying to go to HR, but it really doesn't open.
It's that one.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So,
Okay.
so that's one of the lessons learned, is really go look, see what other people are doing out there, and be active in the community, engage. I think that's a big piece. We've been really plugged into New Space New Mexico and
Plug
Albuquerque.
in. I guess that's the big thing. Plug in,
Yeah.
because you don't know what that next thing is going to be. We and then multiple communities, I think, right? Be willing to go out and talk to people. Be willing to go out and come to events like this. I've had more conversations in the past day and a half than I probably would get in 3 months' time normally, just by coming to one event.
Yeah, I've worked with several companies like, why do you need to go to these events? What's the value added? And I'm like, well, it's really about networking. There is some information, right? You find out kind of, like DISA was here and in Air Force, ACC, A6 was here, and they talk about things coming up and all that. But one, you can engage with those folks to kind of see where they're at. You can gauge what's coming up. But the biggest benefit to me is getting out, talking to the vendor companies, seeing what technologies they're bringing, what ideas they're looking at, and then if they're going after certain things. And then the networking events. So this conference did a good job of, after each major keynote, they had time to network, and then the lunches, and then in the evenings they had a networking event. And that's kind of standard practice, I think, but the networking events are really important to get out and talk. And again, we've had so many opportunities, Nate and I, where we had a Smalls networking event, and then 2 weeks later or a month later somebody calls up and says, hey Dennis, we met at the Smalls networking event. I know you guys talked about, you guys had a software factory. We're looking for somebody to do that. Tell me what you guys can do. And from there we start getting into contracts.
Right, and the government is, especially Department of Defense, is making a big push to bring in innovation. But how is those opportunities faring for small businesses? I know there's the cyber contracts. What kind of vehicles are you seeing out there? And are small businesses, how are they faring, I guess, in this kind of climate, I guess?
OTAs, I think, are kind of, we're seeing a lot of stuff come out on OTAs, and then a lot of small businesses are winning those OTAs, but not all the OTAs are fully funded. Mm-hmm. So the funding hopefully is going to come later. I think Dennis won us over $500 million of OTAs in the past 12 months, but probably only
Not
100 of
funded,
it,
yeah.
it was
Not
funded.
funded.
Yeah.
For very small businesses, startups, or somebody with some tech, SBIRs are the way to go.
Okay.
That's been
Right.
Or STTRs.
STTIRs.
Tell us the difference between SBIR and
Small
STTR.
Business Innovation and Research,
Yep.
SBIRs, and then
I don't know the
technology
STTR.
transfer.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's small. It's technology transfer.
You have
Partners
the
with
big
other
difference
vendors.
is that it's the same type of thing. You have to have a tech, right? But you have to work with an educational institution.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Okay. Yeah. To get that.
academia, you have to
For
work with
STTRs.
academics
Overlap.
for
Okay.
STTRs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes SIBRs too. Sometimes they ask you to do that as well, depending on the criteria. But again, SBIRs is 3 phases. So you go through phase 1, which is kind of concept development. Phase 2 is develop the prototype, and then phase 3 is scale it up a little bit, and then hopefully you sell that to the government customer. It's seed money, that's what I call it. So it's not huge amounts of money. Say it's a couple $100,000 to get the concept out there.
For phase
maybe
1.
an very initial prototype. Yeah, phase 2 is usually millions of dollars, and then phase 3, can be a lot more than that. So, I mean, again, for me, I look at that as that's seed money to get your tech moving in the right direction. And each service and really organizations within each service have SBIRs. So you can look for broad area announcements if you're looking for where are these things. Each service puts out broad area announcements, usually on BetaSam or GovWin.
It's no longer beta SAM.
It's
Sam
just
Duck
SAM.
over,
It's
yeah.
just SAM.
Just SAM
.gov, yeah.
Sam.gov.
Very
Yeah.
confusing
Yeah.
after 2
So
years.
you look for those things to find them, or get with your PTACs. Again, the PTACs are out there to help you, and then there's several organizations that we work with.
And
that,
spell out PTAC for us.
Procurement Technical Assistance Center.
And those
again,
are in each
They're in every
state?
state
Okay.
and pretty much almost every city, but especially if you're around DoD kind of states where there's bases, they're pretty prevalent. And they are a great resource if you're starting out as a small government contractor, or want to start out, or you have some initial tech. They can point you in the direction you kind of need to go for getting into that one.
Also, they also have what's called, I'm going to get this messed up, and I said on board of directors, MyBid.
Yeah, my bid.
So they've got a product called MyBid. So once you become a free member of PTAC, as they're helping you start your company, we already mentioned SAM.gov, where you can go to find all the future contracts.
Yep.
They actually have a setup where you tell them what you do as a company, what your NAICS codes are, what your capabilities are, and you'll get a daily email from their system called MyBid that will have all the contracts that are coming up that you should go after. So
It's free.
It's free. It's all free.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing for small businesses. There are so many resources out there, and that's why we started the Small several years ago. Is people don't know all the resources that are out there. So we wanted to be a place where people could go and kind of get started. Where do I go? And if you plug into us, we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Even on the you'd asked us earlier before the podcast about the commercial side. The small business development centers, we've worked with them in the past, and that's kind of the commercial side. So PTAC, the government contracting side, SBDC, the commercial side. But you can leverage both resources, and again, it's all free. And then you get plugged into the accelerators. There's, in Colorado Springs here, we have Exponential Impact. We have the Catalyst Campus accelerators. CyberWorks is here. If you're doing some cyber things, they do cyber sprints all the time.
SpaceWorks is also here.
SpaceWorks. So those are other organizations where you can take your tech and maybe apply it to the different areas that you're looking at. So contact the Smalls. It's www.thesmalls.org.
Very easy.
Starting point. We are kind of regionally focused, but again, we have a national outlook, so that's not an issue.
And how about academia? Are you pulling in, research institutions or even, PhD students, that type of thing? Are you seeing any
So
of that?
we have a lot of conversations with them. Academia is a little different though when it comes to, in our daily jobs, we do a lot of hiring our heroes, apprenticeship programs, internships. We've talked to academia trying to see, hey, can we get something, a cohort started or something like that. Academia always seems to need to have funds brought full time, and a lot of funds.
Right, okay.
But on the flip side, we do, so University of Colorado is one of the largest recipients of DoD funding grants.
Okay.
They do a lot of work. We have a lot of organizations up in the Boulder area for atmospheric research, space, sun, all kinds of stuff. So that's all up in the Boulder area. And NIST is up there, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're also in Boulder. And so CU does a lot, and I would argue that probably most of the universities around here do work. And as Nate mentioned, there's a lot of partnering that goes on. So if you're going to do an SBIR, STTIR, or STTR, you will engage with the universities and have them work with you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so there is quite a bit of engagement actually, and they co-hosted this year the AIAA. Don't ask me how to do that one because it's some French thing and I don't do French. But AIAA,
It's not an acronym. It's just
it's a food. No, but AIAA hosts an annual tech summit every year, and they hosted it at CU this year. The previous couple of years they had it at CSU Denver South. So they brought in a lot of the students to talk about their projects, what they're doing in the campus, so that the industrial complex. So we have Lockheed Martin in Colorado, Ball Aerospace, Boeing, Raytheon. They're all here, and so they could all go and meet with the students and hear what they're doing, and maybe hire some people and bring them in. So again, there is some synergy here. Could it be better? I think so.
ISSA,
Yeah.
I mean, they put a big cyber conference here in September usually, I believe.
Yes, ISSA has a big cyber meeting, and that's really focused on the technical, professional cyber side.
Okay.
That's the other thing. Each of the organizations is a little different. AFCEA is more about the government to industry engagement. ISSA is really focused on the technical professionals, certification support.
Kind of like IEEE, same type.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
ISC2
technical
here
side.
in Colorado Springs, and they're really the test guys, right?
Right, yeah.
If you want to get any kind of cyber testing. So all these organizations are all here, just not always, it's not an easy path if you're kind of coming into this industry. And that's where we wanted to help.
Yeah. Are you seeing a lot of veteran-owned small businesses?
Actually, no. And if you go to some of the PTAC events, so at least our PTAC here in Colorado, they are extremely engaged. Every single month we have what's called G2B, Government to Business Outreaches, and when they'll bring all the small business offices from all the neighboring installations, and they'll tell everybody the problem is that they don't get a lot of the veteran owned, because usually when they leave the military or retire out of the military, typically they don't start their own business. Typically, most of them are going to go work for a company.
Established company.
So they're always looking for businesses, because that's one of their requirements that they have to fill every single year, is give so much money to those types of companies that are military owned.
And I would say that, all the socioeconomic groups, the women-owned, the 8A, the veteran-owned, the hub zone, the Native American, that sector actually, to me, maybe because I've become more aware of them, they've actually seemed to have grown quite a bit, the Native American side.
Yeah, there were several here,
Yes.
several booths here who specialize in cyber or other
Yes.
advanced technologies.
Or they're moving into that space, right? So that has grown a lot. I would argue probably the least represented, I don't know, I used to be women-owned, but I would say that that's not true anymore. I would almost say that the veteran-owned
It's veteran-owned.
is probably the least.
And actually, what I've seen not weird in a good way, is veteran-owned is coffee shops.
Huh.
A lot of veterans are opening
and breweries.
coffee,
Yes.
seriously,
Okay.
coffee shops and breweries.
Almost every
yeah.
brew pub in town here is owned by a
No
veteran.
kidding.
Now, Colorado Springs is a weird dynamic, right? We have
Right.
5 bases here.
Yeah.
And up the road, if you had 6, right? I mean,
Right.
so, and then, there's so many bases near here. So there's a lot of opportunities for folks. But yes, Nate is correct. A lot of the coffee
lot of them
shops
are coffee shops.
and the
Right.
breweries
Yeah.
are, I would say, predominantly veteran owned.
And you mentioned accelerators. Tell us about the venture capital picture. Kind of what do you see? I don't know if you have events that kind of draw in investors, and how is it for small businesses to try to attract funds?
And we don't really deal too much in that
Right.
space. Now, I know that there are venture capitalists.
Sure.
Angel investors.
There are
right?
several big ones here.
Yeah. And you listed them before. Yeah.
Yes, and I do know that the accelerators are focused on that. There are a lot of tech accelerators, as Nate mentioned, the aerospace industry. So a lot of Boom Aerospace, which is developing hypersonic jets. They're up in Denver, and they're winning some big contracts. You got what's UAL, United Launch Alliance, which is Lockheed Martin and Boeing. They're building rockets and going up to putting a lot of satellites up right now. And so those organizations and the supporting organizations are all up there. So ULA, for instance, I think they have like 2,500 vendors or something like that, local. And so all those things are up there, and that's driving a lot of innovation. And so there's a lot of accelerators up there. And they're different though than kind of DoD.
Yeah.
So one of our goals is to try to open up the communications amongst communities as well. Because if you're spending any time here in Colorado, as I said, you see aerospace, DoD, and many times. For some reason, they don't talk on a regular basis. Like, I would think that I would want to, if I owned a company in any one of those fields, I'd be wanting to reach out, hey, I need somebody to build me this. Instead of me sending it off to China to have it built,
We'll see.
literally you can be less than 100 miles away down in Pueblo, and they can pretty much handle anything and everything right there. And then that way you wouldn't have to worry about relying on shipping. You know, the past 2 years, one of the biggest issues we've had? Shipping. You could literally get in a truck and run and go get your parts if you needed to, right? So,
Or your truck would drive itself.
well, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Someday.
Coors Brewery is also here.
Right,
in
yeah,
Colorado.
Golden, right?
They've also, I think a lot of their, not a lot, several of their trucks have been operating autonomously now for years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They actually
Very
deliver
cool.
up and down I-25 corridor, no drivers.
But, you know, you mentioned
amazing.
for funding for some of these. Something else I would always recommend is once again, go to networking. You have to get out there. You have to talk. OEDIT.
Right, hustle.
Out of the capital, OEDIT.
Office of Economic Development and International Trade.
International Trade has tons of free money out there. You just have to be willing to get on their schedule and then put in for those grants and that free money.
Yeah, in fact, that's due in March.
Yes,
All
the
that
next one.
Yeah.
So it's coming up very soon.
Yeah. And what other types of events do you guys have with your organization?
Well, so we do the monthly networking events. We were, prior to COVID, going to have an annual event with all the small business offices. We've been talking about doing that again. It seems like, based on this conference, things are kind of lightening up.
Right,
Getting back.
Yeah.
We were doing a quarterly event with Prime. So we were bringing in Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin, in co-hosting with another organization here in Colorado Springs, and bringing the primes in, so letting people talk to them, seeing what they are looking for, what they're doing here locally, and then what kind of opportunities they have in the future, and what kind of procurement they're looking for too. So,
Right, because sometimes the procurement, will it dictate that a prime has to have a small business partner?
Right,
Okay.
and it could be you provide toilet paper or whatever it is, right? Whatever they need.
Yeah.
They come talk about that too. So it's not always we're bringing like engineers or services necessarily, but they need like parts. They need that kind of stuff. Same with the Forest Service. Forest Service has several headquarters here. They need like buckets and trucks.
And I will say, so at every single PTAC event that we go to, and we have the government representatives there.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things they're always looking for is if you can sell your product via a credit card within X amount of dollars, say $2,500 at a shop, whatever, for your product, you need to reach out to your small business offices and get on their PTAC or their P card list of saying you're an approved vendor. That then if you sell markers, they can say, hey, I got there's like 20 people I can choose from. We bought from these 19 last time. This is one just added. We're gonna make our next $10,000 purchase from you guys.
Yeah.
So that's very key. So it's those little things that you don't really know about unless you start getting out and having those conversations.
I always told my kids, invent something that everybody uses.
Yeah.
Like toilet paper.
Sticky
Right,
notes.
That everybody uses. That's what you gotta have.
Yeah. And what other things would you like small businesses to know about your organization?
We have a podcast.
Right.
That's correct. We do Smallcast podcast. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so tell us the name again.
So the name of our podcast is the Smalls Cast, or just Smalls Cast.
Smalls Cast.
We are on every single podcast and distribution app out there, but you can also just go to thesmalls.org. And you'll see everything's linked there. You can go to Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon Music, every single one you can think of, we're on. Just search us up, Smalls Cast. And what we do there is we have conversations, just like we're doing now. We literally talk with people. I like stories. I like stories. Dennis is very more on the business side. I'm the joker.
But we talk about basically the ecosystem. We want to hear from across the community kind of what's happening, what people can offer. So it's really free advertising for companies, and we want to bring in companies and service providers, and so say you're a bank and you want to, your big focus is you want to work with these emerging businesses, and that's what you do. And so
but you don't know how to get into that space because COD is kind of its own space.
Yep. So you can come in and be a guest on our podcast and tell us what you can do for the government contracting ecosystem. So that's been a big boom, and it's been. We started right when COVID hit.
Not because of COVID.
Fortuitously.
Interesting. Yeah, you guys are ahead of the
So
game.
a real quick story. I got to tell the story.
All right.
It's my favorite story. So we, let's see. So October 2017, Dennis started small with another person. I joined
A little while later.
a few months later, early 2018. So we were doing events nonstop up and down the Front Range. And then come November timeframe, we're like, we should make this a real thing, right? Instead of just doing this, we should actually go out there and actually do the paperwork with the IRS to make it a full nonprofit. So we are a 501c6 nonprofit organization. So that means that we can take in
Donations, fees, subscriptions.
So we get out there and we officially make it a full organization in November. About December, we start talking like, hey, what are we going to do next, right? What's our next step in the year 2019? What are we going to do in growth? And I said, well, I'd like to possibly do a podcast. And Dennis being himself.
Remember you said like stories? Here we go.
Right.
Well, I got to call people out. We're going to call them out. Dennis is like, well, nobody listens to podcasts. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I've commuted for 20 years back from Pueblo to Colorado Springs. I listen to podcasts, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people out there. So he's like, whatever, I don't care. Just go figure it out.
So I like the idea.
He liked the idea after we started talking about it. But then we decided, well, let's go ahead and how we do this, right? We didn't want to be the ones that just used a phone. Nothing against that, but we're both kind of audiophiles. We're like, we want better quality. So we actually started booking professional time at professional studios. We had studios in Colorado Springs and in Pueblo booked, ready to go. Our very first podcast was supposed to take place on March 16th, 2020.
Oh my gosh.
With the Space Force.
With the Space Force.
The new Space Force Small Business Office.
And Space Force Association, Bill
That's
Wolf.
right. That's right.
We had all booked. About noon on Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th, yes, it was what
That
it was.
was the day. Yep. We had to shut down.
I get a phone call at noon from the studio saying, I'm sorry, we can't have you on Monday for your podcast. You're shut down. I'm like, well, this is fun. So that weekend, right after that phone call, I started looking through Facebook Marketplace.
You're like, what are we going to do?
Craigslist. I'm like, no, I refuse to keep pushing it, right? I'm the type that just says,
make it
if
happen.
you're going to do it,
Yeah.
do it, right? Start someplace.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good, how bad. Just get it started.
That's a good
because
point.
there's a lot of that you have to learn too. We've never done a podcast.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm technically savvy. He is
I'm
definitely
laughing
not.
because I picture Nate now. He's going to tell the rest of the story. I'm picturing him wearing black and a black beanie,
So-
black
so,
makeup on.
I picked up my very first recorder.
So he went in and robbed the store. No, kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, I did not. I want to keep my clearance. I met a person in a
You
parking
went on
lot.
eBay or something.
Well, no. So I went Craigslist,
Yeah.
Let It Go, all the different apps, right? I met a lady up in Fountain, Colorado. Bought my first recorder. Good deal on the recorder. Sweet. Paid cash. It worked. That was good. Now it's like, well, I need a decent mic. I can't do this without a mic. So I got a hold of a lady in Southside Pueblo. I met her like at
Walmart parking lot.
6 p.m. Walmart parking lot, Southside.
In the dark.
In the dark. And she pulled up in a white Mercedes. And I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. At least I'm not too worried. But she brings it in a Walmart bag, 2 microphones. A My Little Pony microphone from an old karaoke machine. And she also brought in a Shure microphone from like the 1970s. So, if you go to our website and on our podcast page, the rest of the story is there, where
You can see it hanging.
we record. So I didn't have a microphone stand. I didn't think about that. I was like,
Right, yeah.
I need a cable,
Like
I
a-
need this.
Yeah.
I didn't think of a microphone stand. So like literally minutes before recording, I figured out, well, crap, I need to go figure this thing out. So I went and got my old tripod from an old digital SLR, and I hung the microphone using rubber bands. So I took a picture of it. That was our very first recording. Since then,
and the podcast is there. The picture of his setup is there on our.
and then I have a
like
picture
that.
of our new stuff after we've gotten a few sponsors and new equipment.
How it started and how it's going.
Exactly. So I guess what I like about that story is even though we're a non-profit, we too are a small business. So we know exactly what you're dealing with. We've had to do everything ourselves. It's been us.
Marketing.
We have a small board.
Right.
But from the beginning, it's really been us marketing, learning how to do all this,
Planning the events,
learning how
talking
to do
people.
YouTube videos, how to do
Right,
podcasting.
yeah.
How do you get your name out?
So our advancement this year was to move not just from podcast but to video podcast as well. So we have a
Yeah.
YouTube channel now where we do this.
Yeah,
Right,
look
so
at
where
us
would
on the
people find it
Smalls.
on YouTube?
Just search up the Smalls on
The
YouTube.
Smalls on
You
YouTube.
might get some.
Well, I think we're number 3 on the list. I got all. we've got
If you work in
producer Jen.
SEO.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. That's an important thing.
It is.
So how many episodes have you done with your podcast? And can you give us an example of some of the people you spoke to? You mentioned the first one was Space Force, and you obviously with My Little Pony
Well, how
microphone.
many
like
years
you
now,
said.
right?
So this is our 3rd season.
Wow, nice.
Third year, really.
Third year, yeah.
Third year. First year, I think we produced, I want to say 84 episodes.
That's
Last year.
We do it we usually do it once a week,
right.
but sometimes more. But typically
Yeah.
once a week. And
So
we
we're-
put our newsletter out once a week, podcast once a week.
We probably have a
Impressive.
couple hundred episodes now.
Yeah, that's
and
really
it is another lessons learned that we've learned. You got to ask earlier, kind of lessons learned. One of the lessons learned we're very quickly realizing we can't do it ourselves anymore. It's been tough.
Yeah.
Even though it's a nonprofit, we set that up, but we haven't pushed on the
whole social media, website, content development.
We're starting to do that, but we haven't pushed on the funding side ourselves. We need to learn that
Right.
now, right?
Yeah.
We need more support because we can't do it ourselves.
Right, and you're growing, and yeah.
And as another example, Pentagon contacted us about 2 months ago, said, hey, we heard about you guys' podcast, we want to do the podcast.
Very cool.
We're now in 45, 46 different states in like 19 countries
I've listened.
that listen weekly
Yeah.
to us. I don't know why, but hey, thank you, that's awesome.
Thank you, India.
China, Russia, whatever. Just kidding. But we welcome the hits too, right? Just smash that like button.
Yeah.
No, we're always trying to learn something new. Always trying to just move it forward, move the ball forward.
So who have you talked to recently, as an example?
We talked to a realtor last week.
Okay.
And that was we've never had a realtor on, and she offered our listeners from the Smalls, if you listen to the podcast and or go to our website because we post her information there, she offers a discount. Her lender is going to offer a discount to the Smalls. Again, how can they help the government contract ecosystem? She's going to offer relocation packets for companies
That are moving here for
Colorado.
whatever.
So
they need facilities,
that's
and they
correct.
need to
You need
find
everything.
that.
That's
Right,
correct.
Wow, yeah.
So
Plus housing for your employees.
yeah, we've had
Right,
many
not just
companies
the
on. We talked to a lot of small government contractor companies.
Our favorite one, my favorite one,
Right.
one of my favorite ones. I call up Dennis. I'm like, hey, what? So we go back and forth. We put stuff on each other's calendars all the time. And I'm like, hey, I've got this podcast. And he's like, oh, cool. Who is it? And I told him, well, it's a water bottle.
Oh,
And he laughs at me.
I
He's
said
like,
water bottle.
yeah.
Like
How's that?
like a plastic reusable water bottle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We're gonna put a big plug for you guys in right now.
They're called Model Outdoors, MODL,
Okay.
Outdoors.
It is water's first multi-tool.
Well, yes, that's their tagline, Water's First Multi-Tool. Very cool. I got in touch with them at one of our smallest networking events down in Pueblo. A buddy of mine had brought them in because he runs the Southern Colorado Innovation Link, and they wanted to figure out how to get their product. So they had
To the
started
DoD.
exactly. So they started with Kickstarter. So when I told him we got a company that sells water bottles, he's like, "Why? What does that have to do with small business in DoD?" I'm like, "They want to sell to the military." And Dennis like literally. Yeah, I think he just realized he just said I had a stupid question because he's like,
Because
oh, yeah,
it
of
doesn't
course.
seem to be related,
Right.
but yeah,
But
warfighters
literally,
need.
it's the entire
dependable-
ecosystem.
Yeah.
So this water bottle, anyway, is very cool. They are completely modular. Like you can put a filter in it. You can put it in your
Screws both
backpack.
in. You hook them together. It's got straws.
You can use it as a
got
lantern.
speed. You can use it as a shower.
That
you can
sounds amazing.
Modeloutdoors.com. Premium
MODL.
stuff.
Very cool.
Well, the
Yeah.
cool part was is that I also am big into scouting. So
Sure, yeah, I
literally,
had some
it was
scouts myself.
fortuitous. As soon as we got done with the podcast, I had been talking with some of the leadership in Colorado for the scouting organization, and they're like, you know what, we just lost Yeti off of our list of products. We'd like to maybe buy some of their products. So they've been buying products and putting them on the scout shop walls now.
Right.
So it's little things like that.
Yeah.
Right. Did we get anything out of it? No. We made some great friends.
Right.
What's the guy? What's the software?
Person Justin is
That's right.
awesome. Call him up.
Right.
What's the company up in Denver? The software guys too. The guy from Philly. I can't remember his name. Stratagem.
Oh yeah, Stratagem.
That's another good one.
They flew people in from Philadelphia to record our podcast.
which was crazy.
It was great. I accidentally made a mistake on his name, and literally to this day, that was almost a year. That was probably a year ago. We had that on the
At least,
podcast.
if not 2 years ago.
And he's like, Nate, people are still calling me by that name that you called me. And I think they're doing it on purpose now.
Right.
Because people are hearing it. So
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So we've had basically the gamut of companies, not a lot of big ones, mostly small government contractors, again, service providers. They always want to come on because they always want to say, hey, we can offer this to your listeners. That's been a big thing.
Yeah.
We've had a couple manufacturers on. That's kind of really it. And professional organizations, we've had AFCEA, we've had NDIA, we've had Colorado Space Business Roundtable.
we've had banks, we've had
the whole gamut.
insurance companies, we've had pretty much anything for the ecosystem.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
You are our first reporter, though.
I'm
Yes.
excited to be your first reporter.
Yes.
Yeah. It's as a reporter you kind of traffic in information, and
Right.
seeing this whole technology revolution in the U.S. Is very cool, and seeing you guys kind of boosting up that ecosystem from the ground up for small businesses is very impressive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It is a heavy lift. I
Yeah.
won't lie.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's
Yeah,
been
you're very
fun,
passionate about it.
but it's
Yeah.
very fun.
Yeah.
And we learn every day. And for me as a business development guy, it helps me to connect with people too. But I see it kind of the larger picture, kind of altruistic, I guess. But that we're about economic development because we want to help companies grow. Companies growing helps the community. The community helps us back, right? I mean, it provides jobs and opportunities for us too. So in the end, it kind of swings back to us. But
Yeah, it really does.
it helps the community, and we're also, I guess, one other group that we didn't talk about is government. We work quite a bit with Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce, the Military Affairs Committee, as Nate mentioned, OEDIT. We've done some things with them as well, and help them advertise things. So the city governments, county, state. And then, as we mentioned, the federal government, so the small business offices, the P-tax, those kind of things. So that's another piece to this puzzle, actually, we didn't talk about.
And are your Colorado, either on the state level, state senators, or your U.S. Colorado senators aware, or representatives
Matter
aware
of
of you
fact,
guys? They should
Senator
be.
Lamborn, the state senator, he's actually supposed to be coming over. Not for the smalls directly, but through the smalls, actually.
That's
He's
how
coming.
we
Yeah.
met
him.
I can't tell you how many people we've met just because of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Pentagon called us. They want to get on the podcast. We're trying to get that organized out.
Well, and we also participate in the, what do they call the Aerospace Day of the Capitol.
Yep,
We
that's
participate in
coming up
that.
March 8th.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks from now.
Yep. So that's up at the state capitol with all the state leadership. So the answer to your question is yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me proud to hear of the work you guys are doing, especially to grow America. I think that's key.
And it's all support of AFCEA. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's
AFCEA is
Well, why were we here, right?
Yeah.
We are
Yep.
supporters. So
Yep.
Can I ask you guys about your company? A little bit more about your day job? Obviously, you're in quantum computing, which is a very
It's not
emerging.
quantum computing,
Oh,
actually.
no.
Actually, we don't do anything with quantum
Okay.
computing. We're going to work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my mistake.
So
No.
we're Department of Defense. We do a lot of prototyping, so probably like 65% prototyping for
R&D.
space-related capabilities.
Like-
And in that portfolio is high-altitude capabilities, LEO small sats, ground stations, the devices that soldiers or people use on the outside. Our primary customer for the last 30-plus years has been the Army. We do a lot of software development, software assessments for all the Army helicopters down in Alabama. We do quite a bit of cyber work, data center work, high-performance computing work, software development.
And
Yes.
what are your backgrounds? Like, what did you get your degrees in, and kind of where did you start
Oh, you don't want
in
to
your
go there.
professional work? Well, I think
we have enough battery life.
I just love to hear
Dennis
about
is like,
people's
There I
stories.
was.
well, in 3rd grade, let me tell you. No.
I did 24 years in the Army,
Okay.
and then I got out, and then I decided I kind of didn't. I wasn't having a lot of luck finding opportunities totally outside the military, which is a problem I think that we still need to address in the United States.
Meaning
finding opportunities for soldiers or
that aren't related to DoD. Outside.
Yeah, when you go
Okay.
just commercial, like I want to go work for Target or whatever it is.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
There's some programs out there, but I still think it's a struggle for a lot of people getting out. And we like Nate said, we support hiring our heroes in the career skills program for guys getting out. But I see a lot of that over and over again, that there's a bit of a challenge there for getting out, especially if you do your 20, 30 years where you go. And I thought government contracting kind of was a foot in both worlds, where I'm commercial, but I'm still tied to the DoD or the military. So my comfort zone, if you will, and then expanding a little bit. So that's how I kind of ended up being a government contractor. And then, as I've been going along here on the road, I started seeing, like we said, the need of kind of connecting the different things out there. Because I've been involved with different professional organizations since I got out. PMP, AFCEA, ISSA, Association for Proposal Management Professionals, Association for Strategic Planning, all these different organizations, and they weren't all necessarily synced up. And then, like I said, a friend of mine said, hey, we should get a meeting together where we have the small business development guys all get together and let's talk about opportunities. And that's how the smalls kind of blew up.
That's a seed.
So, yeah.
So you didn't talk about your degrees, though.
My degrees aren't really.
He has degrees. Makes it sound like he doesn't.
I have a degree in life.
Philosophy major?
No. I do have a poli-sci undergrad.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What was your? You got to tell us now. What your major was? I'm economic theory.
Because I was in the Army for a long time, so I after I went in, I did get the opportunity to go to Command General Staff College. So I had an opportunity to go to the School of Advanced Military Studies. So I have a master's degree in operational planning from the Army, and then I went to grad school as a foreign area officer. So I got a degree in international relations with a minor in diplomacy. And then I went and got my MBA in.
He's so humble.
I got an MBA.
10 degrees later.
I got an MBA in strategic planning because I really like that whole aspect of planning. And then I also got a PMP project management graduate certification from UC Irvine a couple years ago as well. So I did project management. I was gonna get my PMI, but I didn't do it. But I went through the whole 18-month certification.
That makes two of us.
So I got that too. And a few other things. I still don't have my doctorate yet. I should have just done that.
That's coming next.
No, I don't think I'm going to do that. That's too much paperwork. I don't want to do that.
No.
School of Hard Knocks.
Me. I was born and raised on a farm. So did construction, did farming.
Right, what area?
North Dakota.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm a West Coast guy.
Okay.
So he tells me Southern Canada, but that's fine. I like my Canadian relatives.
And now he lives in northern Mexico. So.
Yeah, it's just...
Pueblo, Colorado.
So I actually came to Colorado to get my undergrad in electrical engineering.
Okay.
So I've got a bachelor's in electrical engineering. I immediately after, it was right when the .com thing kind of was out, and it was like dying. Mm-hmm. I'm like, great, I'm trying to find a job. I had sent out like 400 resumes from like November till May till I got my first job, and I started working at Honeywell. I am not former military. I just decided instead of serving, how I wanted to serve and help out was design and build weapon systems for the military. So for 15 years I worked at Honeywell, and I used to design and build entire ground-based satellite tracking stations on the Air Force Satellite Communications Network. So all the ground-based stuff, so tracking satellites. And then after that, I moved to a new company called Oasis Systems, and decided to work in some of the ground-based phased array radar systems. So we would work on space domain awareness, or space situational awareness at the time. So tracking space debris around the Earth. And then I moved up and ran all of the missile warrant, missile defense radar systems from the PEO side. So on the government side, the ANAS stuff, so advisory and assistance services. So we had all the engineers and all the project managers that would support all those programs to make sure that we kept the warfighter going. And then Dennis won a big contract and said, hey, we need somebody to run the program with the Space Force, our company. So I moved over to him. So while I was doing all of this, I went back to school, got a master's degree in systems engineering, and then got bored and went back, got a second master's degree in
You're just as humble as he is.
program management, emphasis in IT systems, and then got bored and went back and got I got my certified system engineering professional through International Council of Systems Engineering, so INCOSE. So I have not went back and got my PhD yet, but someday, as soon as a company pays for it, that's kind of
They offer.
No, they offer
reimbursement.
A couple grand a year.
Right, that's not gonna
10
cut it.
years ago, the PhD, I looked it up, it was like $89,000 for 3 years. And I was like, but that includes your books. I'm like, it better include a car for me to get to and from class. What are you talking about?
Right, yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So yeah, that's
Right.
a little bit about my life.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you guys all day, but maybe one other question, and then if there's anything you wanted to add. Do you have any advice for young kids who could be your future small business innovators?
Yeah, I talked
Advice
to
to them?
so I was doing security here, and I had about 10 of them yesterday, younger.
Yeah.
Most of them were airmen, but I was talking to them about, if you know, for instance, if you don't know what you want to do, just kind of move in a direction.
Right.
And you never know where you're going to end up at, right? If you had told me when I was 18 years old that I'm going to be sitting here doing this today, and where I am and what I'm doing, no idea. So life is a journey, right? You're going to go all over the place. But
Come to networking events.
But that's my next thing is get plugged into some professional organizations. If you're like these guys, I say if you're getting out in the next year or so, start getting plugged into AFCEA, ISSA,
And
small.
it's more important. Don't just join now. You have to actually go to their events.
Right.
Yeah.
Put in effort.
Because that's where I made a mistake. I was part of IEEE for years, but I never really attended to their events. I was like, oh, well, I'm joined so I can get the magazine.
Well, PMI's out there. They have events. All the professional organizations have events. We also have in Colorado Springs First Fridays, Cyber First Fridays. So the first Friday of every month, they have basically a happy hour, and they want younger kids to come and companies to come to engage with those younger folks and see what they're doing and where they're going.
Cyber certification. You get one cyber certification. There's been stories here in town of high school kids graduating high school with their certification in cyber and starting out with a salary of $75,000 without a degree. That's insane.
Right.
A
Just
college
out of
degree,
high school.
just out of high school.
Wow, yeah,
So
that's how important cyber
it's out
is.
there.
Yeah.
Cyber software development, not even necessarily engineering, but software development, coding. Those are two big up and coming career fields that are really booming right now.
And then I would add to it, please don't smoke pot. You can't, you will not, you will never be able to work in this industry if you partake.
Yeah.
Right, that's a good point, especially coming from Colorado. That's very
legal.
pro.
It's legal.
Well, it's
Right.
going,
Right.
it's legal in many places right now. But I don't think that word gets out, right?
Yeah, and the government needs to trust you. And
Matter of
that's
fact,
part of it.
I've been in some events with the University of Colorado, and they're working with their students, and they really push, because the DoD, industrial base is pretty large here in Colorado. I mentioned all the companies that are up in the Boulder, Denver area, and they have to tell their students, look, we know it's legal. You're in college now.
And it's legal in Colorado, but
It's
it's
legal.
not federally illegal.
Yeah.
But if you want a job in the
absolutely.
DoD, that is a big deal.
Right.
Big deal.
Right.
I've got people that I know that have phenomenal engineers, but ended up partaking, and people found out, they lost their job, or they lost their clearance, which then made them lose their job, and not only their job, their career, because they'll never get another job in the DoD.
Yep.
Right, and I think there's something to say for the people who are protecting our country, who are in the military.
Yeah.
And so it's worth to just not partake. And,
Well, it's actually even more than that, right? You can't even have like CBD oil.
Yep.
Like,
Right,
you can't invest.
Yeah.
In
So-
marijuana companies.
So those
Yeah.
are things that people, they don't tell you. The problem
Right.
is, the work problem is they don't tell you that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's maybe just assume that you know that,
Right.
but people don't tell you,
Yeah, that's
hey,
interesting.
you better talk to your financial advisor, make sure you're not investing in anything to do with this.
Yeah, my husband works for the government, and he wouldn't even let me buy the CBD oil for the
correct.
dog.
Well, I
who
run-
had,
My wife has
pain
migraines,
issues. Yeah.
and the doctor recommended, well, you should try CBD oil, and I said, you can't.
No.
Sorry.
No,
So now we've got all this other aromatherapy stuff.
Well, I run quite a bit. I do trail running, ultra runs, and they are always giving us stuff. Oh, rub this on your knees, and I'm like,
What's in it?
that would feel so
Read the
good.
label.
I actually grabbed one time. I grabbed a pack. I was running. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna put some of that on my knees, and I looked at him like, oh, CBD. Oh, I'm not gonna do it.
Here, try this gummy.
Yeah.
That'll make you feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Or at least you won't remember.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. It
Yeah.
really is. It's an issue right now. that you need to
I'm
think
glad
about.
you guys brought that up, yeah.
For a young person.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it sounds weird because like, well, you're just being old crotchety old man.
No,
And I'm like,
but
no,
it's-
it's
yeah.
it's a real thing. If you
Yeah.
ever, so I help out in STEM a lot. My wife's a teacher, so I go to the schools, the middle schools, the elementary schools, the high schools, and try to talk with them and explain. Look, I know you guys think it's cool and all this kind of stuff, but think of what you want to do eventually, and make sure that you stop doing whatever you're doing before you go
Right,
in.
right.
And get engaged with young AFCEA and things like that, right? Those are, there's, I would say most of the big professional organizations out there all have these young,
And
whatever.
do it, especially right now. Are you serious? If you guys are high school seniors right now, or any time in college, seriously, you could be making six figures and not even have a degree right now. There's so many jobs out there. You just have to want it
Yeah.
and be willing to pick up the phone and go talk with people
Right.
and have that conversation.
Yeah.
Well, we have a co-worker. She was actually putting herself through college, working at Chick-fil-A. She was a shift supervisor at Chick-fil-A. She was getting her degree in software development, software engineering, and we hired her. One of the best employees we've ever had. But again, she was very
That's why she got the job.
right.
Yeah.
Because
She wasn't super skilled. She didn't have all the
Right.
experience, but she was a go-getter.
Yeah,
and that's what
absolutely.
she had the
Yeah.
mentality of I'll do what it takes,
Yep.
Yeah.
and that's what speaks to me.
Right.
When
One of my, so I worked for Northrop Grumman for a few years, and one of the ladies we were interviewing, we called her up and said, "Hey, we're ready to do this interview," and she goes, "Oh, it's today?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, well, I didn't realize it was today. I'm sorry." And I said, "Well, it was on our." She said, "I don't have it on my calendar." I said, "Well, we got an invite." She goes, I didn't see it." And I said, "Well, we can reschedule if you want." She goes, "You know what? I'm here. You're here. Let's do this."
Right.
And I leaned over to the hiring manager. I'm like, "We're hiring her." Right? And she was one of the best
Right.
hires too that we've ever
Yeah.
had. Right?
Yeah.
She was willing to just go. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's
Right,
kind of
yeah.
the.
Same
It's
here.
not always about your experience or your not head knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's your attitude and your
Right.
willingness to kind of go for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Any advice for the kids who aren't in science, or maybe they're, in
Well,
arts?
I
or-
mentioned to you APMP, right?
Right,
Association
okay.
for Proposal Management Professionals. I'm on the board here for the
Right.
Rocky Mountain. Was it APMP Rocky Mountain? We changed our name. So, but anyways, we are looking for and trying to develop a career path for proposal management professionals, right?
Right.
So if you're an editor, you're a marketing person, you're into graphics, there are so many opportunities out there. It's not necessarily really easy to get into. A lot of times we say we fall into those career
Right.
fields, but there is a lot of opportunities for the non-engineers,
Sure.
software
And then the
developers.
other recommendation was get yourself a good engineering friend. That can help you out. When you're like, hey, I want to go after this. Do you think we can do this? Yes, I can. Let's go ahead and write this thing together
Very
now.
nice. Very
So-
nice.
But there is,
Yeah.
I mean, across the DoD, if you're, so the National Contract Management Association, NCMA, they have a lot of things too. We're out there where if you want to get into contracts management, right, there's that. So government contracting is huge. And it's from the technical guys that actually work on developing parts and systems to the administrative side of the house too. And they need everything in between. There's, public affairs, there's promotion, there's marketing, there's writing, there's tech writing, there's all the stuff. Signals Magazine,
Right.
there's journalists, right? So there's, again, the ecosystem's
Opportunities,
huge.
yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Well, anything else you guys wanted to add?
No, we talked a lot. Whew, you talked a lot.
Yes, it's me. It's always me, guys. And you talk a lot with your hands.
I do.
I do that
I must
too,
be
yeah.
Italian. I'm fidgeting with this little piece of
Oh, great. Now we're gonna get Italian email. Stop. How about you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you do it for?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I work as a reporter for Signal Magazine, which is AFCEA's official monthly magazine. We have a website and a print, magazine that our members get every month, and
Online and print.
online. and
What's the
print.
website?
It's AFCEA.org,
Okay.
and then it's on the main page. You'll see Signal Magazine.
Okay.
It's a very cool job. I was one of those people who always liked to know things. I was the kid at Christmas who searched the house for Christmas gifts. Like, I want to know things. So being a reporter is kind of figuring that out, traffic and information. Early on in my career, I got a degree in economics, and I was working for the American Gas Association that does natural gas, residential and commercial association work for all the utilities in the U.S. And I was in their planning and analysis division where they did big reports on gas use, natural gas usage. It was a lot of spreadsheets, but it was also a lot of words. So I kind of had to pick which road to go on. Do I want to be doing modeling and numbers, or which do I like better? And I kind of like the words a little bit better, even though I did like statistics. But
I'm sorry.
And
Yeah, as an engineer,
That wasn't my favorite either.
trying to think what else. But you have to be a reporter or to be in writing, you have to like words and think about how words come together.
Right.
And
pictures.
yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm curious. So obviously you're not like I guess I wouldn't call you mainstream. You're not an NBC reporter, ABC,
Right.
or whatever. What about the truth? I mean, that's been huge in the media for the past couple of years, right? I mean,
and the whole field of journalism has certainly taken a hit about that.
well, it seems like it's at least on the mainstream stuff. It seems it's went away from journalism and went more towards what is it called? Op-eds, right? Here's my opinion.
Right. Or kind of entertainment news.
But you guys kind of do more, because I've been with FC for decades now, for years, maybe decades even now. You guys focus more on kind of factual, technological,
and
kind of areas.
it's nice to be able to root yourself in that.
Right.
We get to talk about what kind of systems or technologies or capabilities, or with military leaders, kind of their vision or where they're going or the policies.
Yeah.
Not so political, kind of. It's more apolitical.
Right. We're an independent.
Yeah.
We take no side.
That's good. That's what every reporter should be.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm sure that's hard too, right? Because everybody has their own opinions.
Right.
So it's tough to keep that out, but I guess you guys are taught that, right?
Right.
Well, her last article was cyber stinks, but no, just
China does it much better.
Cyber isn't real.
Right. I mean, the easiest thing, I guess, that I've seen is to be that I'm pro-American. We have a lot of discord in the U.S., and it's, I think, a hard time that we're all going through. But even so, I'm still proud that, we're American.
It's it's the best country in the world.
I think it should be, right? I mean,
Right,
I think, if you are an American citizen, I mean, especially in this field, right? If you are not, then we have to start questioning, well, what's going on?
Why are you trying to work for?
Or why are you sympathetic towards everything else? I'm not saying that you can't be. I mean, I mean, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
But.
And I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and so being a reporter in that area is pretty cool. There's a lot of events, a lot of stuff happening, but a lot of events where, I feel like I'm always learning as a reporter, and I learn from my fellow other reporters. The military reporters in town, there's a whole cadre of us. There's the big dogs, New York Times, CNN, there's TV, newspaper, and then there's nonprofit AFCEA Signal magazine, but we're there, trying to figure out what are the important technologies.
So how many people are on the staff there? Is there a lot?
We have our communications division is about 14 people, but not everybody is a reporter.
Right.
Everybody can kind of report, but we have a lot of we have an amazing art director.
And you're at the AFCEA International
at the
headquarters,
headquarters, And so AFCEA only has 51 people, worldwide. So we're
and we have low expectations. We only expect 2 or 3 million hits on this, whatever you guys are going to produce for us.
I'll try.
And we'll try to get you 42 million on our side.
Speaking of, you guys have a podcast too, correct?
We do not have a podcast.
No.
We've been, some of our, like my boss, Bob Ackerman, the editor-in-chief, and my colleague, George Zeffers, who's the executive editor, we've been interviewed for a podcast, like a reporter's podcast, but we don't host one of our own.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys ever want to, call us up. We'll help you out.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
Yeah, we would need your help.
Yeah. No, actually, it's not as hard as you think, I think.
Right.
I mean, there are things to learn, like you said, but it's a good medium.
There's nothing wrong with learning something new, right?
Yeah.
Once again, jumping on both feet.
And really, for us, I think the bigger picture is not just the podcast, it's the integration of all the pieces. So, magazine, or for us, newsletter, YouTube, podcast, website, events, right? It's all
social media
integrated,
yes.
And that's kind of where we
that
are
alone
today.
is its own ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you publish your newsletter? Is it an email or online or
Email.
both?
So the email we send online,
I'm
we send
signing
out.
up
The website has the podcast. It has our calendar of events that we mentioned earlier, also tied to the PTAC calendar of events. We also offer blog posts. So if somebody wants to put a blog post on, they can.
Call us up.
Yeah.
Write the article. We'll post it for you.
And advertisement for events. So we'll on the email list. We'll also send out occasionally. Not too often because we originally were doing it a lot. We were like, it's too much. And so we kind of backed off to really once a week our newsletter, and then if there's an event like this one here in town, we'll put up maybe 1 or 2 additional blasts of that event coming. So that's kind of it. And then we're working in other channels.
Yeah.
You know, we're on LinkedIn. We're
I was
on
trying
all
those
of them,
things.
Twitter
Yeah,
and
Insta.
Instagram. But we're not so heavy in those spaces.
We
yet.
want to be, but
Yeah.
once again,
It
2
takes
people.
time. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So we've got someone to start now helping
And
us.
it would be different if we were full time working the smalls.
Right, you have a whole other career
Yeah.
outside of this.
Jobs.
Kids.
Right, families. Yeah,
Families.
I didn't ask you that.
What are those? So it's pretty all encompassing, right? And like you said, it can go as far as you want to go. And
So for those of you guys watching this, that's like the 4th time Dennis has waved at people. People are walking behind the camera, so he just waves randomly. I'm
Or he's not waving at the
hey,
ball.
yeah, it is.
Hi.
Just he's
And
not.
then he's
having,
waving at you, the audience.
that's right.
He's
He's not having any health issues where he's got Tourette's. Just
No, he's
waving at the
encouraging
camera.
the small businesses. He's waving to the small businesses.
Hello, everybody.
Like,
Yeah.
here
We're actually
we
in
are.
the
Been doing it for
lobby.
an hour,
Actually, in the
what?
lobby of the Broadmoor Event Hall.
It is awesome, and it's what 16 degrees outside now.
Yeah, it's a heat wave.
It was -2 when I got here this morning.
It was minus, I think, 13 yesterday or something like that.
Yeah, it was nice.
Cold. But that's why Colorado's great. We have no
Yeah.
bugs. And that is why we have no bugs right there.
Aw, I didn't
No
know
bugs in
that.
the summer.
And
They're-
sunshine.
That's because it's dry.
And it's dry, it's high, and it's cold for about 2 weeks every year, January, February timeframe. This cold front comes in and it basically kills everything.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a great
We're
place
almost
to go.
March, though. It's
and
crazy.
300 something days a year of sunshine.
Sun, yeah,
as you
yeah.
can see right now. It's beautiful outside.
Beautiful. Well, any small business I come across, I'm gonna tell
Send
about
them our
the
way.
podcast.
Please.
Yeah, definitely.
Send it our way.
Definitely. We want to get the name out for
Yeah.
If you would like to be a guest,
On the
waving to you,
podcast.
if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, just give us a shout. Again, we're at www.thesmalls.org.
Or-
you can find all our contact information there. You can actually sign up for a
can.
podcast there. But give us a shout, and we'll gladly have you on. Again, free advertisement. Get your name out there. And we're trying to do a better job of integrating content too. So pre-podcast, post-podcast,
fancy.
all that kind of
Right.
piece
I
too.
figured all that out. You know,
Yeah.
Once again, just
Yeah.
different things, trying out different things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I recommend
See
it.
what works.
These guys are amazing to talk to. So.
Thanks. Sorry if we talked a
We
lot.
like to have fun.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Smallscast podcast. Connect with us at thesmalls.org. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter to receive our free materials. See you at the next episode.
See you at the next episode.